I'm going to play you a clip of something absolutely crazy that happened during the recording of this episode right now.
I want you to know, I never achieved that goal of 15 houses with $300 a month in cash flow because my mind expanded into a faster way to achieve passive income and financial freedom. And we're going to dive into that exploration in other episodes. But, oh no.
I recorded this episode in my dining room at around 11 o'clock at night, and everything in the house goes pitch black until a flash of orange explosion lit up the window to my left. Rest assured, there was a transformer that I guess exploded, and the power came back on a couple seconds later. Without further ado, let's return to the topic of what it costs to buy another rental. Enjoy the episode.
Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Invested Fathers. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson. The topic of buying another rental, what it costs. Maybe for some out there, they're trying to buy their first rental. And that has seemed to pop up over and over in my conversations with investors the last few weeks, has been identifying the problem of trying to get into real estate. And I hear a lot of, I'm just trying to get a rental. That seems to be like the starting point for many, many people out there. It was a starting point for me. And a lot of education and a lot of trial and error, a lot of in my head thoughts of, man, if I could just get that first rental, I think it would really get me on the path to success here. So I wanted to address the topic and educate as best I could the step-by-step of the good, bad, and ugly of successfully completing this mission. And I'll be using my latest rental purchase as a case study to give real numbers and source how I did everything. One of my goals during this episode will be to highlight the role and activity of my private money lender, Laura, and share her feedback and her experience throughout the process. In an earlier episode 14, titled Investing Actively or Passively to Be or Not to Be, that episode gives some good insight on the differences between Kenny's role in actively investing into buying a rental versus Laura's role, which was to passively invest into real estate, and the pros and cons of each one. And truthfully, one of my main goals as a capital raiser is to attract as many investors into my deals. So does sharing this information of how to buy a rental go against what I'm trying to do? No, I'm trying to educate and help everybody out there who's listening to this. And a lot of the conversations of the people that I see and am engaging with on social media has been around this topic. So I'm also a believer in this. Actively real estate investing is not for everybody. Duh. Or else we'd all be doing it. And I think there's enough hardships and life-altering commitments that have to be done in order for this to work successfully that it really is not the path that maybe you think it is. I do believe that the majority of people today are asleep or lazy or are just content to not put themselves in uncomfortable positions and to take any risks where their life is going by at a rate that feels like holding sand in between your fingers. It's going by and you can't stop it. And I think that's a sad truth. So let me probably derail back to the topic. Okay, title of the episode: did it cost me to buy this rental? Let's briefly backtrack to earlier Kenny's mindset of buying rentals 5 years ago. This is important because the mindset during everything I've done needs to be tracked because I'm being educated and I'm learning new experiences that might help you to say, hey, what were you thinking during this stage of your life? So during this stage of buying my first rental, financial freedom was always the goal. Man, I want to make mailbox money to do nothing and have all my expenses paid for. I think I know how to get there. My plan was I'll buy 15 rental houses and each of them will make me $300 a month after all expenses are covered. So that should give me about $4,500 a month. And that should cover the cost of living that we have, insurance, taxes, internet, jelly of the month, all the things that we have signed up for, so that we could really just be okay with maybe doing like a flip or two to cover everything else. Plus, our retirement will be covered because we'll own these 15 houses that will be paid off in full over the next 20 to 30 years through renters. Sound good, right? This is where my mind was getting started in the real estate world. Granted, part of me today still is pulled toward this ease of being a solopreneur, doing 3 or 4 deals a year to make this dream a reality. If this mindset is similar to yours right now, I want you to know I never achieved that goal of 15 houses with $300 a month in cash flow. Part of the reason for that is $300 a month in cash flow is a great number for a long-term rental. And when you look at numbers for cash flow, it's very easy to be deceived by looking at a month-to-month cash flow versus what was my annual return this year on this one house. Was there a gap where the renter moved out? Was there any expenses that popped up that I didn't account for? And it's just so easy for that to take one fell swoop with one empty month, or painting the house because there's marks everywhere, or just different expenses. So yes, you can allot for capital expenditures, CapEx, and I do account for that. But even that, I feel like eventually is a number that gets diminished. All right. I found this deal none other than through my lovely wife, who was walking with my daughter and talked to a neighbor while they were outside. There's a little bit of the, wow, that house looks old, or those bushes look way overgrown, or there's trash in the front yard, kind of the radar of this could be a good investment property had popped up. So that's how this was found, through talking to neighbors, which I would say is another secret to my success. Is talking to neighbors is one of the best ways to connect and make deals happen. Is that scalable? Maybe not. But if you're someone who is okay with doing that kind of thing, you're not scared of interacting with someone that you don't know, you're comfortable in just connecting through maybe an awkward ice-breaking conversation, then hey, you could find a house doing that. So my wife ended up giving this guy my number. This guy, his parents lived in this house. They were in their mid-90s, both of them. Older couple, had lived in this house for 30 plus years. And ironically, the guy actually lost my number until he was cleaning out his truck, and it was like in the center console, and it was like perfect timing where he found it, called me. His parents were like more or less going to the hospital because their health was declining, and we were able to close this deal. Interestingly, hours before the owner had died. He was literally in the hospital, and
what I learned through this one actually was, even though contracts were signed, attorneys were, signing all these papers, it does not officially pass to the next person until the tax stamps are recorded at your county office. And I'm sure I'm saying that a little bit wrong, but, could it have just been a power of attorney? Would it have been passed into his wife? Like, there's all these things that people think might have happened. But the truth is that if this guy would have died and we had not recorded the tax stamps under my name, it would have gone into probate and might have taken months, anywhere from 8 to like 11 months to actually have this property sold. There might have been a way I could have structured buying it and working on it so that I didn't have to wait that long, but the owner would not have been able to take any proceeds until the end of probate. So the deal was found that way. The next question is, how did you fund this deal? So I met with a friend of my parents, actually, and was talking to her about what I'm doing. And I had texted her saying something like, hey, if you're interested in, funding any deals that I do, love to sit down and talk to you about what my process is and, what your returns could be and, see if that would be a good fit. And thankfully, this individual, my lender, was very unhappy with the experience that she was receiving from her financial advisor and just how her money was working for her. Also has a lot of concerns about the administration in the government and sort of uncertainties of what tax laws, tax hits, and other things would be coming her way that she is just powerless over. So she has been pulling her money out of a lot of institutional places, stocks, financial advising, those kind of entities, and is loving working with someone like me who is doing these deals and her kind of just having more control over what is actually happening throughout this investing process. So I had a conversation with her, and one of the best ways that I like to ask for money is I'll give somebody all my numbers of, the deal analysis. Hey, here's the purchase price. Here's all the closing costs and the renovation costs. And if we sell it, we're going to have a realtor fee, and there's going to be some taxes on this, and all these things added up. And this is how much it's going to cost to do this whole deal. And this is how much we're going to make on this deal because it's going to be worth this much. And I just show everyone the numbers, and I say, would you be interested in funding the purchase price of this property? Because if we do that, then we can put your name on the deed so that I can't sell this house. I can't do anything with this house until you approve as like the mortgage payoff lender that you're paid off. So you are totally secure in this. Worst thing that could happen is we're halfway through the project and I just flake out, disappear, which isn't going to happen. But you are stuck with a half fixed up home that needs to be finished. I think that's like probably the worst case scenario, because now you have a headache of trying to finish it out. But if you can get through that headache, you've now made a large amount of money in everything that I had done with no charge for you. So Laura funded the purchase price, which was $175,000, and she funded $35,000 of renovation, which I knew would cover a majority of what it would take to get this place rented out. But I knew there might be some extra expenses along the way. So
she sent over, she wired $210,000 to me within probably 2 weeks of that conversation. And this was key because we needed that. We were under a time crunch on this specific house. So with the guy literally going to the hospital and the son calling me saying, hey, if we could get this closed like as soon as possible, the doctors are giving him like 24 to 48 hours. And we were supposed to close like on like the first of the month, and we ended up doing it like 2 or 3 weeks before then, based on that phone call. So I was moving fast, and we got the deal done. So it's now been funded. I have money for the renovation. I contact a guy that I've used on the last 3 products of mine. Great guy. He is probably in his late 20s, early 30s, father of 2 kids. Sort of a one-man show, but he has 2 or 3 workers that, sort of come in as needed. Has like a cabinet guy. He's an electrician, so he's basically jack of all trades, can do everything. I found him on Facebook, which was, I think, a diamond in the rough, because I have found some really awful workers on Facebook and do not recommend Facebook, but I found this guy on Facebook, so I guess every now and then it works. So Fabian fixed this house up and did a great job. We ran into a snag. He did sub out the painting, and the painting was terrible. The guys dripped stuff everywhere. It was globby. I don't know how. It looks like they literally tried to do they did an awful job. It was like a joke. I think they were maybe on drugs. I'm not sure exactly why they did so bad, but Fabian made it right. I probably lost a few weeks for him to have to redo their work. So there was a setback there. Oh, another thing that happened was I hired a guy from Facebook to scrape the ceilings, and this guy duct taped a scraper to like a measuring stick, like a yardstick, and brought his like 14-year-old son to help him, and basically gouged the ceiling, where it then cost me like $1,100 to pay someone else to come with this like sanding machine vacuum thing, and it looked amazing. All right, all to say is there's maybe more of those stories I could give, but we got it renovated. And this was also a situation where there's a basement, and this is very important. You buy it for a certain amount, you run all your numbers. I've already listed a few of those. And the key to holding on to this as a rental has got to be, once it's done, how am I going to pay back Laura the $210,000, as well as any other fees that come up that need to finish this house? For those of you that are familiar with the BRRRR method, BRRRR, this is the strategy that I implemented.
The acronym means buy, renovate, refinance, rent, and repeat.
It's the only strategy I've used effectively where I've been able to pay back everybody instead of just, put down 20% and just be under for the next few years until the cash flow potentially resurfaces. And there's other strategies into seller financing and doing what's called a subject to. We're not talking about that today, but there's other ways to buy rentals that are low to no money out of pocket. But in my experience, connecting a private money lender into the purchase price, and then rather finding other private money lenders or using your own money to cover the renovation. And there are other banks and institutions that will cover construction costs, but they're usually high interest rates. So they're kind of like in a bridge loan situation. But I do believe the best method is working with private money lenders. So after the house is fixed up, you do what's called a cash out refinance. And what that does is you go to a bank and say, hey, I have a property. I want to do a cash out refinance. Can we talk through the process of that? If you have a W-2 and a good tax return, good tax returns for the last 2 years, this process is actually a lot easier. The
that was one of my hold-ups on leaving my job that I worked at for almost 10 years, because I thought as soon as I lose this, it's going to be very difficult for me to do this cash out refinance, because I no longer look good at all to a bank in regards to what's his debt to income ratio and what's his income and how stable is he over the last 2 years, because now it looks like I'm making negative money because of all the properties I own and the lack of W-2 income that I can show. Doesn't matter that I made all these money on flips. That means nothing to banks, to most banks. So they do what's called a DSCR loan. DSCR is debt service coverage ratio. And what that does is they say, okay, forget Kenny Johnson or his LLC, whatever it is. Let's just look at what the property is producing through a signed lease, or what is the market rent for this type of house? So I was able to get a signed lease for $2,900 on this house. And based on what those numbers produce, the bank will give you a certain loan to value ratio based on how much more or less cash flow you have. So if you're making a ton of cash flow, there's like lots of meat on the bone, the banks could give you up to like 80% of a loan to value. So what that means is if the property appraises for $380,000, which is what this property appraised for, at 75%, they're going to give you, $265,000. Well, that's how you pay everybody back. You pay your lender back, you pay yourself back. Oh, and by the way, another fee that comes up is you're paying your lender their interest each month. So I was paying Laura $2,100 each month in her interest on the loan. And that money has got to come either from Laura, where like I'm borrowing a big check, or someone else. So that number is very, very, the ARV, after repair value, it's a very important number that you have to calculate into paying everybody back. So the snag on this specific property was, even though I have a signed lease for $2,900, the market rent for this specific house was valued from the appraiser at $2,000. And the biggest gap was, this is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house, but the downstairs has 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. And to appraisers, if they're going to do a comparable on what the market rent is, they're not going to even use that 2-bedroom, 1-bath downstairs. They're going to just do what's above ground. This is standard in South Carolina. I don't know if it's different in other states, but so this house is considered a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So the rents were pulled at other 3-2s, and they go with a lower number. So the lower number was $2,000. So I was only able to pull out 65% of a loan to value based on this DSCR loan. And that number was like $244,000. So the property appraised at $380,000, but I can only get a cash out refinanced mortgage on this house now at $244,000. So that happened. I did shop around different rates, and I contested the market rent because there are other houses nearby that are 5.3s that are renting out for $2,500 plus, that I tried to, persuade the appraiser to look at his numbers, but they went back to those were below grade, and you're not a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house. You were a 3-2 with a finished basement, and we can only give you this much. So I accepted that. If I would have been able to get 75%, I would have made $18,000 on the refinance. Because I only made, 75%. Yeah, $19,400. Because I could only pull out 65%, I ended up, this rental ended up costing me $18,600 that came out of my pocket to make sure everyone else was paid back for this specific deal. Now, what that might sound like a damper on this deal, but with that number, I have $114,000 in equity that is mine in this house that is not realized until I sell the house. And when I sell the house, there will also be a realtor fee, I'm sure, that will happen. So knock off another, $20,000 there. But as it stands, that's a 43% return, 43% ROI on this deal. So those are the numbers. Laura, throughout all this, I sent her videos. I texted her. I called her. She actually came and toured the property, I think 3 times during the whole process. Saw the bathrooms being redone, saw the downstairs going from like junk storage to a nice, 2-bedroom. We added some walls. We added a bathroom, and she just loved it. And she loved the way I was excited about it, and she loved being part of it. You know what else she loved? She loved the $29,000 she made by literally wiring me money. That's how much money she made by being a passive investor in this deal, receiving updates, walking the properties. Those are things that she wanted to do, and I just feel like that's my part in receiving these funds, is to communicate through everything. So that sounds good to you. That is a way you can make money in real estate, is by just passively investing. So here are my key takeaways for you guys. This took 13 months, and nothing in real estate really goes fast. Sure, that's my opinion. That's been my experience. People out there maybe have other ways to do it. But every step to closing on the deal, funding the deal, finding the deal, fixing the deal, refinancing on the deal, wiring. Maybe what goes fast is wiring money. That's what goes fast. Receiving money from Laura was, that took about 2 weeks. That was fast. And then I went and set up automatic drafting to go into her bank account. Did that one time. So every 28th of the month, she was sent $2,100. Another thing I didn't mention was I ended up asking her for another $20,000 during this project, and increased her returns so that she was making even an extra $200 a month. I paid her a 12% interest only payment to what she was making. So that key takeaway of understand, number one, the time that it will cost you, and then this was $0 out of my pocket until the very end. The very end, it cost me $18,000. So for anyone looking to invest, know that those are the costs. I've had deals happen where I, like I said, made money on the refinance. This same deal would have happened in 2019. I would have made $20,000, maybe even more, actually. Just my costs each month on this deal. So after running the mortgage, property management fee, capital expenditures, insurance, taxes, my total cost each month on this property is $2,600. And I really feel like I was lucky to get $2,900 on this specific property. So I am cash flowing $300 a month on this property. But even, I could look at that and say, that's not a lot. I can't retire off of that. And 15 houses to do that type of deal, that's going to be very difficult to find that margin of deal. Should I have just flipped this house and made $100,000? Maybe. But when people talk to me about buying a rental or flipping, what's better? If the deal is that good, you got a lot of margin on the deal, I would totally just hold on to it, because it takes a lot of work to do this. And the idea, even though $100,000 is a lot, you got to keep doing this over and over. Where if you can survive on, buying a rental, making it $300 a month, this is only going to grow over the next 10, 20 years. It's only going to appreciate. There's going to be some tax benefits and claiming depreciation. And this is what I'm going to be leaving to my kids. This type of, I'd love to just leave this one house to one of my kids and say, hey, you just graduated college, you're about to get married, here you go. You can sell it, you can rent it out, you can live in it. But I bought this when I was 35 years old, and I saved it for you. And I just feel like that's just such a great gift. And you're teaching your kids about the benefits of assets. All right. Thank you for listening today. This was the latest rental that I purchased. And as dads, I know you're doing your best to try and build your passive income. Please reach out to me. I would love to get some engagement, interaction on you hearing this episode. If there's any light bulbs that came on, maybe some question marks of, what I was thinking, how I did this, how you could be a part of another deal. Would love, love, love to get some interaction, get some engagement, get some conversations going. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate you. Want everyone listening to be successful in their Thrive Zone and being an invested father.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers Podcast. If you liked this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.